What's up, guys? I'm Jordyn Graime, and I'm here with the Midnight Ride Collective, and today we have Charlie here. And Charlie, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm on what I consider to be sort of my home turf here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Nice. Well, to kick us off, you were governor of Massachusetts for 8 years. How has that transition been from governor to now president of the NCAA?
Well, I think the biggest transition is the geography. I mean, I had no trouble figuring out how to get to know 351 cities and towns here in Massachusetts, and I've lived here for most of my life. Getting used to the fact that I now have 1,100 schools as part of my constituency in 50 states. It's a lot more time on airplanes and a lot less time in the car, and it's going to take a long time to actually feel like I've got my arms around them.
What do you miss most about being governor?
The people and the work. I mean, the best part about a job like that is when you do something well and you do something that makes a difference and matters, you get to see it right in front of you. I think this job is a little more. It's so distributed when you have, the NCAA has 180 committees that have about 2,000 members on them that make policy and make decisions, and it's a membership-driven organization, and therefore it looks a little bit like what I was used to in state government, but it's like state government on steroids.
Right. So there's been a lot of conference realignment movement, and now the Power 5 is about to become a Power 4, which will result in a demise of the Pac-12 that's been around for over 100 years now. With media and advertising and money flowing at these top schools, how do you envision those of the Group 5 being able to, remain competitive and in the athletic department and then somehow become, invited to the party one day?
I think first of all, we'll see what happens with the Pac-2, Pac-12. I mean, there's still a conference for the time being, and they still have a lot of work to do to figure out how to align it. But generally speaking, I don't think anybody would dispute the fact that the so-called Power 5 represent organizations and schools that have far more invested in college sports than pretty much anybody else. I mean, if you look at them, they're basically all operating on annual athletic budgets that are north of $100 million. And the vast majority of D1 schools, even the ones in the G5 and even the ones in conferences like the A10, which most of the UMass folks are in, operate on a much different level. And I think that creates a challenge for the NCAA, and it creates a challenge for the conferences, and I think it's one of the things we got to figure out.
Now, additionally, with the conference realignment, the regionality of FBS college athletics is taking a major hit. With increased travel, what kind of initiatives are in place or kind of becoming to be in place, for the mental health of these student athletes with excessive travel and, being at high academic universities like the University of Massachusetts?
Well, I think, the travel thing obviously depends a lot on how people choose to schedule. Right, and I think that's going to be the big issue. And there are a lot of things people can do with scheduling to make it possible to deal with some of the issues associated with travel. You can do in certain sports, like the one you play, for example, softball, you can do stuff where you can run round robins over 3 or 4 days, and you can cover a lot of games and a lot of teams from one location. And the other thing I'd just point out is, as complicated as that travel schedule is going to be, I mean, there are plenty of folks who play in traditional conferences where the travel is almost as long as the travel is for folks going from coast to coast. I mean, the coast to coast stuff is 4 or 5 hours in a plane, but I'm sure you're familiar with situations where people are spending 4 or 5 hours on a bus, right?
I am, definitely. So now, aside from the college conference realignment and the NIL, how do you envision the future of college athletics, and what can we expect in the upcoming years?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd say is one of the things we've done early on that I'm particularly pleased with is the so-called holistic student-athlete model for D1, which requires access to mental health services, 10 years to complete your degree with your scholarship still available. If you get a scholarship, it can't be taken away from you if you get hurt or you get injured. And for all 3 divisions, starting next year, the NCAA is going to finance and operate an injury insurance program that will cover you for 2 years if you get hurt in your senior year, for example, playing a sport, and make sure that those kids have access to coverage throughout the course of their recovery. And I think the big thing we have to do going forward is make sure that we are focusing in a constantly changing world on making sure we're doing the most for our student athletes so that they can continue to graduate and move on in their lives based on success people have had. It'd be really bad if there was slippage on that one. There's been tremendous progress made on graduation rates, and we need to make sure we continue to move forward there.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Charlie, and remember, go UMass.